today as dealing with my notes. I'm the last speaker too, so I guess we go into the discussion.
Well, I was also planning to be speaker, but going into the role of the chair, but it's fine. I will briefly, I'm Hans Förster from the Hammer Center for Environmental Research in Germany, part of the scientific coordination of TEEB, and just a very brief note on some upcoming products from TEEB. One is a guide for the CB targets, where reference is made to TEEB and where very much the focus is also on making the value of biodiversity ecosystem service visible and actually also integrated into decision making at the local level. Besides others, for example, looking at reverse incentives and subsidies, but also the role of economics in enhancing nature conservation in areas and increasing the area of areas. And these guides are currently in development, will be launched at the CB COP in India, and we make reference, of course, also to other guides because TEEB is collecting information on what is available and bringing it together. So if you are aware of guides that are relevant for this topic, then please contact me or teeb@usz.de, and we are happy to also take your experience and guidance on board of these guidance manuals, which make specific reference to where to find information in the TEEB reports on how to implement CBD targets, or how to reach the CBD targets within your national strategies, but also within conservation strategies at the local level. And not just talking about conservation, but also looking at actually integrating it into nature-based solutions, as it is called in the IUCN program. And thereby, such guidance is also of relevance for the new IUCN program, which is looking at the value of biodiversity in ecosystems, and in fact also what was mentioned, that it's very important also to look at how these values are integrated into governance. That is really the key question. It's not so much of generating these values, but integrating them into decision making and governance is crucial for that. Just a brief overview on some upcoming products from TEEB. Perhaps we can start now with the discussion round, and we can open the floor for questions, and as long as Howard is here, I'm sure he's also available for answering questions. So please, there's a microphone, if you could introduce yourself and say your question in a brief manner so that we can take several.
Please ask questions, name yourselves, and try and answer them. Please, that's you.
Thank you. Julia Young is my name, Australia, and I represent.
Sorry, please. You will press the button somewhere.
Thank you. Virginia Young from Australia, I represent an NGO and a small business that also operates in the carbon and forest area. And I'm particularly interested in this challenge of integrating the incredibly important work that we're doing into some of the key decision-making processes, particularly the UNFCCC processes. And I apologise, I came in late, so I don't know whether you covered this in your presentations, but it seems to me there's quite a big disconnect in the UNFCCC processes between the relationship between biodiversity and other ecosystem services and climate change, and it's causing some really quite serious, I think, policy challenges. Without, there's insufficient CBD input there's insufficient input from an organisation like yours that's actually got that broader perspective on ecosystem services and the underpinnings of all life. And it's critical in climate change because of biodiversity that gives the carbon resilience in land and forest systems. And that doesn't seem to be well understood. So I'd just like your comments on it. Thank you.
I'd like to comment. I've got some points. Do you like to go first?
I think that maybe refer to the FCCC.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for this important point. The whole issue of RED Plus has been addressed by TEEB from a few perspectives. One, to ensure that those involved in the process, and especially those involved in creating the correct mechanism structure that is needed for UN's work on RED Plus, realize that forests are not states of power, that other ecosystem services are extremely important, especially when it comes to local communities. And the use of the term co-benefits clearly is part of the challenge. The language matters. It suggests somehow that the other aspects of the forest are secondary importance, so that's not the case. It's the carbon happens to be the elephant in the drawing room. The challenge here, apart from the way it is described, is also recognizing that without a mechanism structure that takes into account other ecosystem services and that acknowledges that adjacent spaces, especially agricultural spaces, in which sometimes the same communities operate and live and earn their livings, need to be acknowledged as part of an overall landscape-based RED Plus mechanism which we aspire towards. What I mean is that if you have a community living at the edge of a forest, it can't be expected to have one set of behaviors on land where it farms and a different set of behaviors just inside the forest across the other side. And that creates disconnects and wrong economic incentives if better management of carbon on the one side of the water is rewarded and on the other side is not. It also creates lack of effectiveness. These are points that we picked up and commented on in the TEEB reports and the various, and also in the Yale lecture course that was structured around the TEEB reports. What to do about this? I think the first thing is to just get this understanding, a better mechanism structure, understood by those who are creating the process and developing it at the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change. And I think we've made some progress in that direction, communicating this, and I personally have had many sessions to get the message across, but of course, nothing is ever enough. I don't think that is changing enough at the other side. So I think we need to do more work here. And the second is to look for pilots, and that I'm very encouraged to hear some examples of the pilots that we heard from Thailand. Maybe we should put in as a TEEB community some effort to create mechanism structured, appropriately mechanism structured pilots, which are largely in the nature of RED Plus, may not be called RED Plus, they may be privately financed, they may be institutionally financed, doesn't matter. But schemes which are working, but which acknowledge the community basis for this kind of scheme, acknowledge the fact that green carbon is at the end of the day green carbon, that you need a landscape-based approach, and that you need to ensure that other ecosystem services of forests are also rewarded, either by the same buyers of those services, the same interested parties, or by different parties. So I think we need to, from our side, now create examples to show what works, and then renew the dialogue with the UNFCCC. Otherwise, what we may end up, and you are right to point out this risk, is a mechanism which is too simplistic and does not have the ability to survive, because basically neither the side of the stakeholders, essentially the rainforest countries, the tropical forest countries, nor the countries who are paying for it will have enough of a commitment to that. It's great that we have made a start, thanks to Norway, with both Brazil and Indonesia. But once again, in Indonesia, I think we are moving towards this. So we have the UN ORCID, the UN Office for RED Plus coordination in Indonesia, to try and create an appropriate mechanism structure. And we are looking to set up a pilot in Central Kalimantan State, which will reflect this kind of reality right down to the ground level. So I'm pleased that at least the recognition of this is taking place in one major opportunity area. I'm not certain that this is happening in the others, but I think beyond these two countries, it's up to us now to showcase pilots where there's more comprehensive economic and social understanding of green carbon is reflected.
Some more questions? No?
I have a question for two of our panelists, if I may ask quite so quickly. The question is for both Thailand and Georgia, and I appreciate all the good effort that both of you have engaged in your respective ways. And I think it's also in the case of Thailand extremely important that we recognize the community role and recognize property rights as one of the key drivers of a more meaningful form of ecosystem services, valuation, and integrating that into local policies. But my question and the challenge that I would like to pose to you is, how would you upscale this? How would you scale this up to the national level? Unless you also undertake a process of the kind that TEEB has described, which is to begin with policy gaps and understand what are the policy priorities, be it freshwater or poverty or whatever the policy focuses behind, and then go from there to analyze those ecosystem services which assist you with policy solutions, and then go from there to look for a program that then creates a framework for evaluating those ecosystem services, and then go together with the team. And I'm completely agree with your points of that there's just a shortage of people who can do this. The economists in this room, the resource economists and the ecological economists are very precious. We just don't seem to have figured out the way of having them to the opportunities that exist, and I'm sure we will. So how will you achieve this? And is this something that is on your radar screen? That's what I really want to ask. Go ahead.
Well, I think your question is about scaling the project with the national level. So in the designing and implementation of the project, so we are collaborating with all level of government agencies, from local to the national, and even more than that, beyond that. So the project is working with the regional governments. So I myself, as a guy working for here as a regional program in Asia, so I know what this project is there collaborating with the progress in many respects. So I think there's a strategy by trying to involve the stakeholders as much as possible and at all levels. And of course, the project is extremely busy, that's why we have to focus on the pilot side, and we expect that the successful showcase will help us to replicate not only the country pilot and now we have the next one, but also in the other Southeast Asian countries. But we need successful showcase. Think about this people very carefully and just successful. That's really very good.
Thank you for this question because it's a very, very important aspect. I already mentioned that the process in Georgia is government-driven, as I say. So the Ministry of Environment Protection of Georgia took into its hands the process and drive the process forward. And I think it's really very important to make the process as participatory as possible, to include all stakeholders, all other ministries and government bodies that can do something and contribute to the process. However, I still think that it's a challenge of TEEB process because, it often happens that very important documents are developed, but they are put on shelves and then not used in the practice, right? So it's really very important to make sure that the next step is already to apply the findings of the process into the practice and to integrate them into the process of decision making. So I think it's really very important at the same time to start thinking and acting to mainstream the TEEB into the decision-making processes and into the policy-making processes of the country in general.
I could also ask a question to Rosemary. What is the experience of the WAVES program with actually integrating and taking on board other ministries than the environment ministries? So looking, for example, at ministries of finance and ministries that actually deal with energy questions and other major economic sectors. I
really can't speak on behalf of WAVES because I have to be honest that I'm involved very much in Madagascar, but not so much in the other countries, or involved through the demonstration piece that we did. But my experience from talking with my colleagues from the World Bank is that indeed the main target audience for them is certainly the ministers of finance. It depends. What I've seen in the different countries is sometimes the minister is very, very involved and sometimes not so much. I think what is really interesting in WAVES is that they have created in all of the countries what they call a city committee, or that is basically composed of a number of representatives from the government, and in some cases, in the case of Madagascar, the Minister of Economy, I know, is the co-chair, or a representative of the ministry is co-chair of the steering committee. So what I want to respond is that it varies, but the steering committee is certainly a good way to engage many different stakeholders, including the business and private sector and communities, academics, and hopefully it will, as the work progress, get more and more involvement from those industries.
Thank you very much. More questions? Anita? Yes, there's one. If you could go to the microphone. That's first in the back and then perhaps you take, you had also a question, right? Or no? Okay. Maybe we take those two questions very briefly, and then we ask for comments from the panel, because we have only 5 minutes left.
Okay. Hi, my name is Holly Booth. I'm from the UNEP Oil Conservation Monitoring Centre. I have 2 questions, actually. The first one, so Caroline, you spoke a lot about TEEB for business, and I think that it's obviously vital that we engage in the private sector more. But I've noticed on a lot of Congress that it's recognised that there's a huge need to unite the agricultural community and the conservation community through a kind of common language to achieve global food security, continued ecosystem services and environmental conservation. And I wonder if there's any scope for a TEEB for agriculture or anything in that kind of direction. And then secondly, there's been a lot of mention of policy mainstreaming, and I wondered how the TEEB process plans to link with the intergovernmental platform for biodiversity and ecosystem services.
And perhaps we take also the last question at the same time, and then read the first one.
Thank you. My name is Wabini Cosmos. I'm from Ghana. I'm doing my PhD in Germany at Bayreuth University. I just wanted to say a big thank you to the team for what they've been doing, and I would like to find out if you have a project in Korea, because I'm about to start my PhD to assess the economic value of forest ecosystem services in Korea, and I've been here 2 weeks. Very, very difficult getting contacts and getting partnership with people. So I want to use this platform to find out if TEEB is doing something in Korea and if there's any Korean forest ecosystem.
Okay, let me answer your question. His name is Johan Kim. Mr. Johan Kim will be here on Monday. Please meet him. He will connect you with anyone, any Korean that you need to connect on ecosystem services and valuation level. He's Kevin, you know. But coming to the other question, very briefly, a moment each. TEEB for agriculture was kind of started but hasn't moved forward because of lack of financing. So please, with that was the answer I believe in it. I think it's absolutely critical. I think the focus on the small farm that we began to have in that project would have delivered huge consequential results of policy. And it is very important. But we have no contact tracing, and we need that before we move forward. TEEB Oceans does have contact, so it has moved. And so what was the second question was on? IBS, I'd like to refer to German government, and they are very good comment on that. The IBS TEEB connection, to me, is just basically TEEB should give us data to IBS, but I can't say more than that. I don't really have a view on that, but maybe you'd like to comment there.
Well, I feel the same is true for me because IPDS Secretariat is just under construction at the moment. Anyway, they will have the next meeting in February next year from 20 to 26, as you probably already know, and that will take place in Bonn. And so far, IPDS has much dealt with formalistic issues, how the structures, the formal structures shall be built up, and I hope that meeting next year they will come also to the thematic issues. Then you mentioned as for agriculture, I also showed in my slides, I think TEEB processes, what is very important about them is mainstreaming biodiversity into other sectors, using the results and the data for breaking down the borders within other sectors. And we do this, for instance, by evaluating certain ecosystems like grasslands. We have the so-called high nature